I am going to today for the second week of October, which has been a little bit slower. There's been a lot of rhetoric, but not a lot of action yet. There has been a continuation of certain firing policies, and that's one of the big points of news right now. But what I'm going to focus on today for the second week of October is something that I think was more significant, and it's a sign that we're starting to win. Now, if you haven't seen the video from Oh That's Rich, that's his channel's name, I'm going to post it in the description. It's just a short, I think it's under 2 minutes, about how Peter Thiel was caught with essentially confessing to, and it's not, I don't believe it's criminal, I believe that it's in his First Amendment right, but he obviously didn't want to be found out, dispersing huge amounts of money and influence to groups which could possibly include the NAI, the National, and the New Apostolic Reformation, apostolic, with apostles that are supposedly have that kind of authority today. All kinds of other wacky groups. And just in general, the Fear the World Church, which I've talked about. But if you haven't seen that, go watch that now. And basically, if you just got back from watching that, video, one thing that you'll notice about it is that this channel is basically the worst nightmare of somebody like Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was the billionaire who got caught doing this. My channel and the answers that it provides for people is basically, if it were to ever, I understand that we are still pretty small here, but we have been growing a little bit. It's basically the worst nightmare of someone like a Peter Thiel if I were to ever get popular, because his whole strategy was to make up all kinds of lies, and we've been hearing about him talking about themes from the Bible for years, Peter Thiel, and this is just confirmation. I always believed that it was BS when we heard these billionaires talking about it, especially him. But I believe it much more so now. This is all but confirmation that he was doing this. He was using this language, and the people that he was paying in his influence operations were using this language. He doesn't believe a word of what he says, but that he was using this much to the contrary of what people like Naomi Klein, who I applaud in a lot of ways, her work, but she was wrong about this. She thought, or at least made statements as such, that he was being sincere about this, but they were not. Much of this rhetoric was either insincere, or the people that paid for it did not sincerely believe it. And this is something, if you're one of these people, just think of how little these people think of you, and how little these people think of your God, that they are willing to mine as well, that they are willing to use this blatant pandering language, and they don't believe a word of it themselves. And so the object, the reason why he was doing this, was because he was afraid. He had this very conspiratorial view about how there was going to be a process of redistribution coming soon, and he was very paranoid specifically about Greta Thunberg and about the climate movement, which is rather strange because all we want, he's somebody that's well under 50, I think, at least under 60 years old. He would live to see it. So, if anything, he should be happy about that. But he was very paranoid. He thought of her as this communist agitator. And he was very scared of the youth climate movement. And that, he thought that his wealth was going to be taken away. And that motivated him to create all of these conspiracy theories. And as he would test out his theories, he realized that none of them would work until he injected that bit in, until he started going into the faith spaces, into the Christian spaces of the Fear the World Church that I've talked about, which I have a lot of empathy for. But you know who I don't have as much sympathy for? The people who are trying to exploit them and use their votes. I don't have nearly as much. I don't sympathize with them nearly as much. He would go into these spaces, and that was the only place where he was able to find the level of success that he was looking for in pushing his conspiracy theories about how Agenda 2030 was going to take away all of these personal freedoms. And what he was really afraid for was his own personal wealth. It was quite a... And he was the only one. Oh, That's Rich is the only one that made a video about this so far. But this is a real big deal that we actually know as a matter of public record. And, this can be shared with anybody that believes this stuff, perhaps. That there are actual billionaires out there that are confessing that they are funding a huge amount of the most unhinged, most untethered from scripture, from the actual physical world, and from sanity in general, from love. These churches that only want one thing, and that is the oblivion of global warming, and that's why they deny it. They don't want to think about the future. They don't believe in the future. They don't think that much about... This is one thing that I don't like about a lot of the people that talk and comment about how these people that are running our government right now, because they are largely the same group of people as the people that were being funded by Thiel, the faith-based communities, faith, that were funded by Thiel. The idea that the people that are running our government now want a theocracy is actually quite preposterous, because if they wanted a theocracy, they would be willing to fight global warming, because that's how you get a theocracy, is you stop global warming from destroying the world. And then you have all of your policies so that you can make the world how you want it. the people, but they're not doing that. They're going out of their way to lie to themselves and deny it, and that is and to us. Sorry, I have a life. I just needed to help somebody with their computer problems. Anyway, if you actually wanted, and I don't want a theocracy, I see the value and merit in the separation of church and state, and I don't understand why there's anybody that wouldn't understand that merit. Like, it's pretty obvious that the church is the junior partner when church and state are aligned. But, so I don't really understand why somebody would want that. But if you wanted a theocracy, you would fight global warming, because that's the biggest threat to doing anything. And frankly, like, if you read any of the actual promises that were made in the scriptures and you believe them, like, this is a red alert, 5-alarm fire, because all of those promises might just not happen just because of global warming. So, like, it absolutely fries my brains out when these people say that what they want is a theocracy. Maybe that's what they pretend to want, but what they really want is oblivion. What they really want is to not have to exist anymore. And, like, I'm not endorsing that, obviously. I don't like that. I don't like that attitude. That's why I didn't vote for it. I'm somebody that wants to live. I voted accordingly. But that's what these people want. I love them. But the idea that none of this stuff, I tend to lean towards that none of this stuff, at least from the most powerful people, the people that are calling the shots, I tend to believe that they don't have that many real beliefs, that they're incredibly cynical people. I tend to believe that. And so and this was a big confirmation of that. One of the people, and there's several people in this PayPal mafia. I don't know if Peter Thiel was one of them. He would be incredibly hypocritical if he was. But several of these people have been talking both in person and also, obviously, with their money. Now we know that they've given a huge amount of funding to these organizations. For years, they have been directly talking about a very biblical topics, very eschatological topics. And I always had a sense that it wasn't sincere, and it wasn't. And which makes a lot of sense, because these people, if they actually read any scripture, they would know that their wealth means that they have an enormous amount of responsibility to sacrifice it and to do something with it for other people. And they don't want to do that. But, so this was a very big day, this was a very big week. I would say this is the biggest thing that happened this week in terms of showing that the people that all of these fear the world Christians that have very deeply unhealthy Christians, that they have all been following. Many of them. I can't say all of them, but the ones, their leaders, the leaders of modern fear the world, seeking oblivion. I would use a different word if I didn't want to get this taken down, a more direct word. But the seeking oblivion, fear the world, modern evangelical church is the people that they have been following have literally, in many cases, been taking money from Peter Thiel, and that they're not looking out for you. They don't value you. They don't believe. The people that have been feeding you all of this stuff, the people that have been making you miserable with this propaganda about the radical left and telling you that global warming isn't real and giving you permission to erase the future. And that I'm using that word giving permission very intentionally, because there are experiments that you could do in your house if you really wanted to be skeptical, to figure out whether global warming is real or not. One of those is going to be my final project in my science class this year. There are experiments that you can do to test it out if you're actually skeptical. But these people that have been giving you permission to seek oblivion by denying global warming, they don't care about you. They don't care about the glory of your and my God. All they care about is not losing their wealth, is their conspiracy theories that their wealth is going to be seized from them, and their paranoia. That's what they care about. And that's a big moment. Like, I know a lot of these people, and this was something to show to them. This is something that I will show to people. I will link it to them in whatever way I can. I know that YouTube and a lot of social media is very prejudiced against links because of crypto scams, but I will link this video, not this video that I've made, but which is more of an analysis, but I will link the actual video of about Peter Thiel by a guy named Oh That's Rich. He's somebody that I regularly watch. I will be linking this video to people in the future that are part of this, that go on about how the Democrats are godless and blah 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 blah, and they believe this propaganda. I will be showing them that, because it's their leaders. Their leaders are the ones that don't care. And I love them tremendously, but when it comes to those leaders, it's sketchy. I don't know what to do with them. I guess I feel bad for them too, but I don't believe that I'm not going to give in to them. I'm not going to let them destroy the people that I love, and I'm not going to let them destroy all of us, the whole human project, and by extension, the Christian faith. I'm not going to let them do that. So, anyway, I really think, even with all the stuff around the shutdown, and the fact that Russ Vought has been starting to make good on a couple of his threats, which I don't care about because he would have done it anyway. And all of the memes and all the really transgressive, and the memes that have been coming out of this administration, self-proclaimed administration, all the way back to January 20th, have been incredibly transgressive. And especially this past couple of weeks. All of the musing about plenary powers and blah, blah, blah. I think that it's all, even with all of that, I think this is the most significant point of news, and it's good news, because it's good news for messaging. It is good news to remind these people of how little they're actually loved by their leadership. I think that they would actually be willing to form their own leadership. And I think that if they were actually in charge, if the people who voted for Trump, if the voters were actually the ones that had the say, I think that they, instead of, and call me naive, call me crazy, I think that if the voters were the ones that ran things, instead of the people that are actually running things, I think that they would make something beautiful. Anyway, that's it for this fireside. Unless something crazy happens, I'll probably be seeing you next weekend on maybe filming on Saturday and posting, or maybe filming on Thursday and posting a little bit later. It always takes me a little bit of time these days to get these uploaded and make the descriptions, but which are very often quite important. But thank you for bearing with me, and I will be getting back to you for the next week. Hopefully in time. I might do it a little bit early, because I would like to do it in time for No Kings. And I will be there, and I'm sure y'all will be there. If I don't see you again, God bless you, and how you're going to be safe and effective at this rally that we're going to have. See you soon.